Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the writer of comics like Human Target, the recent Batman, Catwoman Special, and the new series on Substack, Love Everlasting. It's Tom King. Thanks for coming on, Tom.
What a pleasure to be here. I love your podcast. It's an honor to be here. It's awesome.
It's kind of crazy, really, to think about it, because when you were last on the show, you were just wrapping the Vision and just starting Batman.
Really? That's what it was?
Wow. I feel like that's like a completely different world for you. I mean, I guess going into Batman, that's a completely different animal, but I feel like your world has slightly changed since then.
I remember at the Batman announcement, looking at my phone, and I had, I think, low 6,000 Twitter followers when they announced Batman #1.
Uh-huh.
And then by the time it finished, I had over 100,000. So that's a transformation.
That's amazing. I mean, that really, I hate to say it, speaks to the power of Batman. The hilarious thing is I'm 99% certain that I reached out through Chris Delando at Marvel because I want to talk to you about the Vision. And I remember talking to you before and I was like, I'm probably not going to ask that many questions about Batman. And you're like, oh my God, okay, fine. Also, I want to point out, I'm pretty sure your dog was a puppy then, because I think we almost killed Chris Somney, who was listening to the podcast, when your dog barked. And that's how much time has changed. Also, you had an entire Batman run since you were on last, which is kind of crazy.
Good. That's vengeance against Chris Somney, because one time in 2012, I waited in line to get a sketch from him, and he didn't finish it by Sunday. So I'm still pissed about that, Chris. So now we're even.
There we go. So we're not here to talk about the time it's been. You've been doing a lot. We could go into a lot of different projects because you've been doing, well, a shit ton of things. But I want to talk about...
I'm so tired, David. I'm just exhausted.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm going to make you more tired by making you talk about Human Target again. We're going to talk about Human Target, your DC Black Label series with artist Greg Smallwood and letterer Clayton Coles. It's a great book. I'm going to do the spiel so you don't have to talk about it. The gist is, a very, very basic version is, somebody was trying to kill Lex Luthor. Instead, they have poisoned Christopher Chance, aka the Human Target, and he basically has 12 days to discover who did this, and seemingly it's related to the Justice League International crew. So each issue is another day in those 12 days. I want to talk about its origins. I know you've covered this a lot. I'm going to talk about part of your origins because it started with a joke on Twitter, which I think is hilarious, especially considering the fact this week I wrote a feature about another comic that started with a joke on Twitter, the Oni series Dirtbag Rapture, with Chris Sabella making a joke about the Frighteners being crossed with the Transporter. Yours was basically somebody made a joke about you writing Human Target and you doing a fake script for it. What happened there? Did writing that fake script put the idea in your head, or did somebody at DC editorial see it and just think that actually makes sense?
Someone at DC editorial saw it and said that made sense. Yeah, the joke on Twitter, people say you should write this all the time, and I always say I write comics where middle-aged men stare out windows at the rain. And so so if someone says you should write this person, I will occasionally put them in a joke and be like, this is what it would be like. And it would just be him staring out the rain. And he's like, I made one with the Human Target. I was like, he stares out the rain, he gets shot at the end.
Yeah.
And I got a call, I don't know, the next day, from Ben Abernathy. This is behind the scenes stuff. I don't know if anyone cares, but I had been working, for a Jamie Rich as my main editor in DC, sort of on all of my projects. A guy I love to this day. He's since left DC. And so I'd never worked with Ben before. Ben had just been promoted to be the head of the Batman office. Batman was this huge success. And so it was the first time I knew Ben, because he had done other jobs at DC, but the first time we had sort of talked as an editor and colleague, and I really thought he was joking when he called me. He's like, I saw your tweet. Are you serious about that? That'd be fun. And I did not take it seriously. I did not think it was anything real or that should get any sort of attention. He's like, do you want to turn in a pitch? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll turn in a pitch, whatever. It was pandemic times. I could, just in case I need to do the work or something.
Yeah.
And I turned in the pitch, which was basically me taking this old noir DOA and making it into a superhero story. And again, didn't take it all seriously, didn't think it was going to be anything. And it wasn't until Greg drew that first cover that I was like, oh, okay. That's when I suddenly took it seriously. Like I literally had totally on the back burner and no interest in it.
I love the fact that basically a joke tweet that became a pitch that you didn't have interest in, they were like, you know what, let's put basically one of the best artists in comics on this because it's clearly such a good idea that Tom is behind. And then you're like, God damn it, now I have to do this.
But I mean, this is very typical. That's how comics work. It's until you're actually writing it, until you're actually down, you don't know how much you care about it. Then suddenly you start writing, you're like, oh my God, now I love it. Now I want to sort of do it. I mean, if you talk about the vision was the same way. I didn't take the vision very seriously at the time. Omega Men had just been canceled. I just thought it would just be something people would throw in the trash, and then it became something. So you never know. It wasn't like I wasn't throwing my all into it. It was just I did not think it would be what it's been.
Right.
I couldn't see this bus coming. It ran me over while I was looking the other direction.
I came across a line you said in another interview that was unrelated to this, but I just think it's funny in the context of this situation. The quote was, I never write down any ideas. I'm of the bizarre belief that if I forget something, that it was worth forgetting. This is one time where you wrote down the idea as a tweet and it came back to bite you. And by bite you, I mean it resulted in a very good comic. I just think that's a funny quote in context of this. Shouldn't write down ideas.
Who knew? Who knew? I should every day I should just tweet out a random person I want to write and just hope the world sends them into my lap.
You know, there is a creator, cartoonist Junie Ba, who basically is of the belief that if he wants to do something, he just needs to like will it into the world. So he was like drawing basically like Robin sketches and like putting them or redesigns and stuff and putting them up on Twitter. And it actually did lead to work for him. So apparently there is something about just like willing something out into the world and it happening because of that.
Oh, this almost happened to me once in the best way possible. I was a big Columbo. I was really into Columbo at one point. I still my favorite shows ever, but I was really into it. And I had done like a few little tweets about it. And I was working on a separate thing with some like major producers, Hollywood producers. And they're like, hey, Tom, we read on your Twitter feed that you love Columbo. We're going to try to get the rights and see if you can write it. And I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. And then they called me on a Friday and they're like, Tom, we got a lead. We're talking to the family of the people. And we think we can, by Monday, we got to start thinking about pitching a new Columbo. I was like, oh, that was the greatest weekend of my life. I thought I was going to be the head writer of a new Columbo show. And by Monday, it had all fallen apart. But it was a wonderful little weekend.
That is unbelievable. Okay. So let's talk about the structure of the series, because I find it to be really fascinating. You said it was like it sounds like this is something that you were kind of taking from noir and injecting into Human Target as an idea. But the thing I really love about it is it's 12 issues and Christopher Chance has 12 days to solve the mystery of his own impending death. And I think that's like a perfect structure, especially because, I mean, not to paint with too broad of strokes, I'm going to do that a few times in this podcast. I'm going to make some stereotypes about you, and I apologize in advance. But it seems like you really like working within the 12-issue maxi series structure.
I do.
I'm not saying you can't make an ongoing work, but having a defined endpoint, particularly after 12 issues, just seems to work for you. What is it about that structure that works for you? Do you want something to aim at to be able to make it a satisfying narrative to you?
Yes. I mean, it's a fantastic question. I mean, part of it is the things you love the most when you were a kid become part of your DNA. So like I love Dark Knight Returns, I loved Watchmen, I love Squadron Supreme. Those were the things I read over and over again and just thought were the heights of comics, and they were like these miniseries. Even when I was Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Yep.
I always felt like the special great comics that were like that had the most power, that hit the hardest, that lasted the longest, were these kind of self-contained novels that were also comics. And that's what I wanted to do when I first got in the industry. And but it's funny because my first things didn't start out that way. Like
Grayson.
Grayson was ongoing, but Vision was ongoing. We just happened to cancel it at six because I got the exclusive with DC. Omega Men was ongoing, was canceled after 3, but they got uncanceled and they gave me 12. So those didn't start out as 12-issue series; they became them halfway through.
Interesting.
And then once I started writing them, I feel very comfortable with them. I think you can get consistency on art, which I think is the key to really, really great comics. Mm-hmm. Is one artist or like in Strange Adventures, 2 artists, but one vision of what it's supposed to be. You can do that in 12-issue series, or you can't really in an ongoing where there's always compromises on the art.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense because, I mean, even on something like The Vision where you had Gabriel Hernandez Walta, but I think, was it Michael Walsh that stepped in for 1 or 2 issues?
Michael Walsh did 1 issue, yeah.
Yeah, 1 issue. And it's just like that worked out really well. But most of the time when you have somebody kind of stepping in, it doesn't necessarily fit quite as well. Like, who would you get? Let's say Human Target wasn't ongoing. Who do you get that matches Greg Smallwood? Like, nobody does Greg Smallwood. He's kind of got a singular style in a lot of ways. And that would be pretty difficult if that was like kind of designed as an ongoing, just from an artistic standpoint, I imagine.
Yeah, you couldn't do it that way. You can only, I mean, you do it the way we did on Vision, where the one Michael Walsh was a complete break from the story. He just didn't tell the robot story. He told a background story about Wanda and Vision.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, what we were trying to do with the Batman Special, was to do a similar sort of thing where we started doing something to give Clay a break.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way you can do it, but it takes us a lot of planning ahead to do that right, and you have to get the right artist, and you have to have the right kind of plot where you can take a break and do that sort of thing. And you can do it wrong too. If you take too many breaks, it can kind of bite into your narrative in a way. I had that rule on Batman where was a stupid rule, where I never wanted to do an arc where we switched off artists for the same story.
Mm-hmm.
So like, where you'd have Mikkel telling them this, and then just Tony Daniel picks it up the next from where Mikkel left off. Because when I was a kid, that bothered me so much. It like just took me right out of the story. So I was always in Batman. I was always playing ahead to being like, okay, this guy can do 3 in a row, so I need a 3-issue arc here. This guy can do 5 in a row, so do 5 issues. Like those kind of things on Batman. So yeah, it's in the end, it's a lot of comics is about managing the art or making it so because the art is what leads everything. So you have to make that your first priority.
It's interesting that you say that, especially in like the context of when you were talking about like the books that really hit you when you were growing up, like, Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns and everything like that. But then also it's like, I think a lot of classics from that era you look at that existed within ongoings. My favorite Batman, or excuse me, my favorite Marvel and DC stories respectively are Daredevil Born Again, which was just an arc within Daredevil, but it was David Mazzucchelli through the entire thing. Yeah. And when you read it now, it's like it can stand alone completely. And then you look at on the DC side, bringing Mazzucchelli back, my favorite is probably Batman Year One. And that was an arc in, God, was it Batman or was it Detective Comics?
It was in Batman, yeah.
It was in Batman. And it's interesting because it's like what you're saying is like, even when you're existing within the ongoing, if you can structure it in a way that will allow the artistic talent to be their best self and also like do the entire story, it's just gonna be a better story. It's gonna be a more consistent story too.
Okay, how much did Year One haunt my Batman run? I can't tell you. I mean, that's people ask me what's the challenging thing coming to Batman. I was like, Year One is the most challenging thing because I've now written about 100 issues of Batman, which I think is more than anyone alive. That means I had 25 chances to do something as good as Frank Miller did with those 4 issues. Like if I was on a baseball team, I would have missed the ball 25 times. Okay, back to the minors. You got to hit a little. You got to get a little better. Like I've never written something as good as Year One. And I had 25 shots at it. It's crazy.
I'm pretty sure that pretty much everyone in the history of comics has had a lot of shots of that and has still come up. You can get close though. I mean, close is good. But okay, let's talk about collaborating with artists, because Greg is a singular talent, but you also work with others like Mitch Gerads, Doc Shaner, now Elsa Chartier, just to name a few. You have like Clay Mann. God, you worked with Jorge Fornes on Rorschach, who's like unbelievable too.
Yeah, Jorge and I are just doing a thing. Yeah,
I love it. But I mean, I do think it's interesting because it's like sometimes there's writers who keep working with the same artists over and over, and like a lot of times it's just because it's a good match. I do think it's funny that there was an entire article on The Atlantic about how you and your artistic partners aren't just artistic partners but friends, which was really funny. But what do you feel like is the key to putting somebody like Greg in the best position to succeed and to get them to stick around and keep working with you?
Oh man, that's it's the key to my success, and I have no idea.
I just assume you just send lots of bourbon to Mitch.
Yeah, lots of. You should ask the artists who no longer work with me why they. I mean, I think you have to. you always have to play to your artist's strengths. So the first thing you do when you get any new book is go and stare at a bunch of that artist's stuff and be like, what is the best they do? And then also look at, what they just, what they want out of this comic. I remember Jason Fabok came to me and he's like, Tom, I want an Eisner. That's what he's like. And he's like, can you do that? I was like, I'll try. But I was like, okay, well, so this is not about he needs to sell pages. And I'm not gonna put like big Batman splashes that he can sell. Like, this is about us making a more thoughtful kind of comic. So we made that Swamp Thing special, and we won an Eisner. So like, you have to kind of figure out what people want, or if you have an artist like a Tony Daniel who's doing traditional and doing Batman, where he can sell a Batman splash for, somewhere between $3,000 and $7,000. If you don't give that guy 2 or 3 Batman splashes in your book, then you've just stolen $20,000 from his pocket. How is he going to work for you again?
Yeah.
Be like, here's just 9 panels grids of Gordon talking to a random cop. He's like, thanks. This page will sell for $200. You just literally stole from me. Thank you, Mr. Writer. So there's considerations like that, but I think the best thing is give them freedom. Like I don't give, I know there are, I don't give artists notes. It's like, you're in charge of the visual, live or die. Like, this is about hiring the right person, not about correcting them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, as long as there's not like something where like, I needed you to draw like something for story-wise, like you forgot to draw like a little thing, like that doesn't happen in 10 years. I can't think of even an example of it. I would never note someone. You always look out for like sensitivity stuff,
right?
So you don't get someone in trouble. But that's part of it, and I really think the biggest, and then like Lee Weeks, a guy I loved working with. And we did some great work together. Lee and I come from completely different sort of points of view on the world. He's very much a man of faith. He's like almost a man of the cloth. That's Christianity in his life is very important to him, which I very much respect. But it's sort of just not where I'm coming from, as sort of this half Jewish, half Christian guy raised in LA. But I wanted to make comics that were part of that sensitivity. So I would make comics that had sort of more of a Christian theme to them, because that's what Lee wanted to come out in his work, and I think there's beauty in that. So I was like, let's do that. So it's that kind of stuff. But the most important thing is to write a good script. That's the best thing.
Yeah.
They want to see, there's those famous quotes from the image creators when they first left, where they're like, you can't believe the shit scripts we were getting. Like, these were not hard. So make a script that tells a story that they actually want to do is the most important thing.
Do you feel like when you saw that first cover from Greg for Human Target, I mean, it sounds like that was a moment where you're like, okay, this is like a real thing. Not that you weren't taking it seriously before, but it was a real thing. Does seeing like the art come in start shifting in your mind, maybe how you want to script this and how you want to position things, just because now you're like, oh, this is where Greg is coming from. Like, this is the approach he's going to take, because I mean, his style in it is so, I don't even know how to describe it. It's singularly him. Like, does that change how you think about what a good script looks like once you start seeing the art coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I have one magic power in life, and that is I can look at a script, especially my scripts, and I know the artist, and I can see the comic that it will look like. I can see what they're going to draw, and I'm right 90 to 95% of the time. That's like, I guess it comes from, whatever it is, 35 years of reading comics and 10 years of scripting them, and it's like that scene in The Matrix where the guy's looking at the little jiggy jag things, but he actually sees pictures. That's when I see my scripts, I can, and I know the artist I'm looking with, I can see what they're going to do. And now it's always better than what I imagined, but I'm pretty dead on. So once I had seen that, I could, whatever that matrix thing in my brain, it combined. I was like, okay, I can see what he's going to sort of do with these pages, and it was even much better than I thought it was going to be. But I write differently now. I'm sure you've read about this, but I write everything at once instead of here and there. I write them like novels. So
Human Target was done.
So but I think he did that first image off the pitch, because yeah, and then so basically from that image, I think I was pretty much done with the series by the time he turned in issue 1. I think. I don't know the exact thing, but yeah, I wrote all 12 issues before he was done with issue 1.
That's wild.
That's just from that. I just had that sort of one image, which was perfect.
I just have to give you credit though. That I think that Matrix analogy is pretty much perfect. I'm probably going to use that in my brain from now on, because I guess for anybody who can immediately visualize moments from the Matrix, which I imagine is a fair amount of people, that will completely lock in something in their head. So good job by you.
Yes. But that's the job, right? That's what I do every single day, is I stare at a screen that just has my words on it, but I have to see a comic book and manipulate. Like, if I move this word here, the comic book will look different there.
It's just interesting, though, because it's like one of the things that I've talked to a lot of artists about and even writers about is just basically if you gave 10 different artists the same page of script, they would come up with 10 different ways to lay that page out or to bring that page to life. Do you have to have like some level of familiarity to matrix your way through something like that? Now I verb that. I'm very happy about this.
I do think when I think anyone from any walk of life can make comics, but I do think you have to read a lot of comics to make them. I think some people come to our industry and they're just like, well, I've watched a lot of movies, so I know what it is to tell stories. And that's you have to have read, like, the Beatles had to put in their 10,000 hours playing. You have to put in your 10,000 hours nerding.
And now, a quick word from one of off-panel sponsors. Macroverse is a next-generation digital comics platform, and one with an astonishing number of comics, with currently over 50 series from over 100 creators on their app, with a 5-star rating both on Apple and Google's app stores. Download the app and binge all their titles, including the Eisner-nominated Remind from Jason Brubaker, Lisa K. Weber's Hex 11, which has been described as Harry Potter meets Blade Runner, or the new queer supernatural adventure series Husk that launches on November 1st. It's just $4.99 a month to subscribe to Macroverse, with proceeds directly supporting the creators on the platform. Keep an eye on the future of Macroverse too, as 2022 is going to bring an epic upgrade that offers a new level of digital collectability and more, with early adopters able to sign up for more information at macroverse.com. And now, back to the show. I want to talk about like a very specific thing from, I think it was like the 3rd issue, and I don't want to paint with broad strokes again so quickly, but you've run a lot of characters through the ringer, much to the chagrin of some fans. That might come up again later, but there's I feel like for some fans it's like there's like a somewhat righteous fear of what you might have in store for their favorites. I do want to comment about the 3rd issue. I feel like Skeets might be your most put upon character you've ever written.
Poor Skeets.
Skeets is like really depressed in that 3rd issue. I mean, there's this line that I immediately wrote down that I wanted to bring up just because I thought it was so hilarious, where like Booster's his normal cheerful self, and then Skeets, for listeners that don't know, Booster Gold's faithful companion / robot partner, he says, "It's highly likely we broke time," which incredibly enough was in regards to their time travel hijinks to get the right ingredients for good bagels. Is Skeets your most oppressed character you've ever written? Or depressed? Both. All depressed.
Can I steal Skeets from somewhere, and I feel bad telling people what it is. But I guess I'll have to. He's Kiff from Futurama. Do you ever watch Futurama?
Yeah, I love Futurama.
Sorry, my brain's farting. But the William Shatner space hero has the partner who's like always gets shat on. So I just use that's the voice I use in my head. Is sort of the.
Oh my god, that is really perfect. Also, like, God, what is? I don't remember the name of the actual space guy, but like, he is pretty similar to Booster in a lot of ways.
My oldest son is a Futurama junkie, so we've watched the show together, 3 times so far. So I have all the episodes in my head. And if I wasn't old, I would know everybody's name. But yeah, poor Kiff. I always think of like, 'cause he's always very supportive and he's always there, but he's always just gets shat upon.
And now Skeets does.
And I love. It's really the most fun you can have in comics is writing Booster and Skeets. I should say I don't write them correctly, and I because like I talked to Dan Jurgens is a buddy of mine, and we talk about it. His Booster is much more heroic and less a little bumbling than mine. But I like a little bumble in my booster.
Oh, I think you got to have a little bumble there because he is trying to do something good, but with the wrong reasoning behind it. He wants to be a hero, but mostly because, I mean, he was like a dude who had like ads on his outfit for a while. I think that was in 52. But anyways, that's just, you can't have Booster without the bumble, I feel.
That's how I feel. Yeah, I love it, his appearance in Justice League Unlimited and the Justice League action cartoon. I like, there's so many, like, I mean, I put it in the comic. There's so many superheroes who kind of are always like, I know exactly, and but Booster's just himself. He's honest and just trying to do good and just falling over his feet, but still getting up and going. I kind of admire his pluck.
And he doesn't pre-toast bagels, which is really respectable.
No, you read the end. He secretly is pre-toasted.
I know. He claims to, though.
He claims not to pre-toast.
God, what a fraud. Well, speaking of this whole topic, I did want to bring up. So, like I said, you write beloved characters often in a way that, let's say, their more impassioned fans can object to at times. I don't know if like the Skeets Hive is after you right now and is just like super pissed about your treatment of Skeets because he's being like brought into time travel crimes. But how much of the for hire job is knowing that maybe like the way that you write Christopher Chance isn't going to necessarily, I don't even know if there's like a human target hive out there too, but the way that you write these characters isn't necessarily going to agree with them, at least up front. Knowing that and then telling the story you feel is right anyways, is it just getting down to you have to have confidence in the story you want to tell is the right way to tell that story?
Yes, but it's not even just that. It's the idea that if you tried to tell the story the other way, it would be so awful. Like,
yeah.
It's knowing yourself as a writer and being like, if I wrote it the way you, there's a way I can write this the best it can be. And if I wrote it the other way, it just wouldn't be any good because I'd be trying to do something that's sort of not me. It's like, I'm always trying just to make the best product possible. And so I will take the hit of, maybe I missed this by a little bit, but to me, these characters are, they're malleable. They change from, I mean, that's how I grew up in comics. A character would, the original Wolverine is not the Wolverine I was reading in Chris Claremont was not the Wolverine I was reading over here. And I liked how they morphed here and they were there and they were kind of different. That's just how I like my comics.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and also, like, to me, this is not going to be me besmirching your peers. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can write comics. And I think a lot of times comics, especially superhero comics, are kind of written towards like what maybe like the general idea of what a character is, or maybe what the general idea of what people want out of that character, if it will be. They want to fit within the accepted versions of what characters or stories should be. But to me, it's like, as an outsider, it seems you're trying to tell the story you want to tell, but you're also, it's like, you're wearing a baseball hat. We talked about baseball. It seems like you're always trying to take big swings. Is that something for you? Like, it's just, you wouldn't be satisfied if you were just trying to do the crowd pleaser. You want to do like the biggest swing you can when you have an opportunity with a character.
I mean, yes, that's true, but I don't want to say like, oh, I'm doing this because I have some artistic function.
Right.
Like if I had the ability to, there's the famous love story, like that novel was, the guy was like, if I did the average of every romance novel and put it in a book and made it as generic and boring as possible to be a huge seller. I don't, this might be a apocryphal tale, but that's like one of the stories about it. And so like if I was smart enough to be like, oh, I know if I put this and this element, I'll get the best selling comic and I'll make a ton of money and my family won't have to worry about kids going to college. Like, I would do it. I'd sell out. But I don't know how to do that. I only know how to do this. I only know how to write these comics that are character driven and personal, and that's how I make the best comics. And it's worked for me. I'm doing all right. So now I'm kind of, I don't know, that's the formula, and I'm going to stick it with it. It's always to make the best comics I can. If I could make better selling comics, I would. It's not like I'm like, ha ha ha, I'm going to do this so it sells worse, or I'm going to do this to annoy an audience. That's never the goal. The goal is always to make the best comics.
Oh no, I mean, that's exactly what I mean. It's just I mean, it's like going back to all the books you talked about of growing up on and like really loving, like the books that stood out to you. It's just like so many of those. I wasn't reading comics when like The Dark Knight Returns comes out, but a lot of times like the books that people respond negatively to at first, and I'm not saying that they are with yours. It's just like it's because you're doing something big with it, and people, that's just how people respond to big things sometimes. And also, I don't think it's possible to like reverse engineer stuff, because I think people sniff out when things are reverse engineered successes. It's like readers kind of know, or viewers kind of know, if you're trying to like just make something to sell, because it just kind of feels wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think about Cosmic Odyssey a lot, the Jon Stewart moment in that book, where he sort of gets over his skis and doesn't realize the bomb is going to be yellow, and then ends up sort of being responsible for a big disaster. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And like I remember reading that and just utterly hating it, because like I love Jon Stewart, I love Green Lantern. Why should he make a big mistake as this? And being mad at I guess it's Starlin and Mignola. So I remember being just as frustrated, but also there was, looking back, like that was a big character moment. That was a big development, I fundamentally believe the heroes make mistakes. You can't have Spider-Man without him, saying, I don't want to chase Uncle Ben. You can't have, except for Superman, he can be perfect, and that's good because you need one guy who's perfect.
Right.
But I think all humans have balance to them, and have good and have some mix of good and evil in them, and some level of randomness, and that'll always come out in everyone I write.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, I think like some of the best stories ever kind of dive into that. Actually, one of the things that this whole thing reminds me of is I remember talking to Dan Slott one time about Superior Spider-Man, about how like people were so mad when it first came out, and then by the end of it, they were like kind of sad to see it go, because it almost gave them something that they didn't know that they wanted, if that makes sense.
I remember people being mad when I brought Catwoman into Batman, and they're like, "Oh no, this is a tired romance. Nobody cares about this anymore." Now that it's on every billboard in my neighborhood, it's the Bat and the Cat. Yeah, you never know how something's going to start and end.
Well, speaking of Batman and Catwoman, I do want to talk about the Batman Catwoman special from you, John Paul Leon, and Dave Stewart, as well as, unfortunately, Bernard Chang, Sean Crystal, and Mitch Gerads. The story is about Christmas and Catwoman, with each page being a different Christmas from Selina's life, progressing from her very first to her last. And I mean, the thing I really want to talk about is like, it also tragically proved to be the last project of John Paul Leon's career, and ended up being a tribute to the artist ultimately. I want to get into the John Paul Leon of it all. Like, what made him the right fit for the book? And, how was the experience of working with him? Because, he's definitely a singular talent if we're talking about singular artistic talents.
Yeah, I mean, we worked together first. I'm trying to think what came first. I think Sheriff came first. He was the alternate artist on the covers for Sheriff. Mm-hmm. They offered him that book. They offered it to him before Mitch, and he said no for scheduling reasons, but I'll do the covers. So that was the first time we started working together. And I just thought his cover for Sheriff 1 was so perfect. Mm-hmm. And it's just an utter summary of, and this. I was very much closer to my war experience back then, so I was like, wow, this feels like Iraq, right? Like, it just felt like I was in the green zone. It was crazy. Mm-hmm. And then we did a short story together for a Vertigo anthology called Black Death in America, with John Workman on letters, and beautiful letters. And it got Eisner nominated, which was my first Eisner nomination. And one of the best things I ever did. And it was a tough story to tell, because it was a true story about a black soldier in World War I, and he told the crap out of it. I just thought it was just perfectly told. I mean, mm-hmm. just utterly brilliant. And it was also one of those things where I had put in the script, I was like, this story is in black and white, and never commented on it. And then he never commented on it, and they published it. And they published it in black and white. And when he came out, we're like, oh, I can't believe nobody ever Like, I don't think that's the only issue I've ever gotten in black and white, until Batman Black and White that we did with Mitch. So it was an absolute joy. I remember calling him after we lost, as I was wandering around San Diego, being like, "Oh, those bastards!" It was so depressed. John Lewis was giving the award because he was there for for March. And I was like, oh, how perfect. John Lewis. This has been a perfect book. Because I could have given it to him afterwards and be like, hey, here's the word.
What could have been?
What could have been. And also John Lewis knew my children, bizarrely, because I lived in Capitol Hill and my kids would play in his house. So I was like, oh, we'll be best friends. Anyways, like, yeah. So, but we were never like, I don't want to put like me and JPL hung out, or we would just like, I saw him at a con and said hi. It was nothing like that. The in-person interaction I ever had with him was Mitch and I had a fight over who could buy the cover for issue 1, and Mitch won. So he sold. I was like, no, sell it to me. He's like, sell it. So Mitch has the cover for issue 1. I have the cover for issue like 8 or 9 up on my wall over here, which is the cover of the trade. So haha, Mitch. And so yeah, so halfway through Batcat, Batcat, as Clay will acknowledge, the art has kind of gone off the rails there. Clay is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best artist in comics, but he's had some scheduling troubles due to his life. And so we were trying to give Clay a break, and this is back in 2019, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
And we were trying to give Clay a break, so he's like, oh, let's do a special so we can, just like we did that Michael Walsh we were talking about, and
buy him some time. And they said, my editor's like, how about JPL? I was like, that's perfect. We'd work together. I did not know he was sick. I knew he was sick in the past. I had heard some rumors, but I did not know he was sick at all. And so I did the script for him. It happened to be, like you said, it's about life and death and everything and the holidays in between. And we were still talking because people wanted to. There was a company that wanted to make a cartoon of our short story. So I was talking to him about that, and I was like, we're gonna do this cartoon and this whole thing, and he was turning in pages, but the pages were coming in very slowly. But I had no idea why. And then I just heard he died. It was. I didn't even know he was sick. I didn't know he was in the hospital. I didn't know anything. Then afterwards, I found out he was in the hospital drawing. Mm-hmm. He was literally in his bed, being like, "I'm going to miss this deadline." That's so incredible. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, he ultimately did was the artist on pages 1 through 13 and did the breakdowns for 14 through 20 and the cover. Which I just want to say, the cover, I don't know what it is about the cover. Maybe it's the context. Maybe it's just like the nature of it. But like, I look at that and I have like a very strong emotional reaction. It's just such a good cover. But so when that happened, did your feelings for what this book needed to be and the feelings of the rest of the team change? Because obviously it became a tribute. You had Sean Crystal and Bernard Chang, two of his two good friends of his, like, step in to draw on the rest of the pages besides the ones that Mitch did or finish the pages. Did you all know it needed to become something more, as if like you had a responsibility because of the situation?
Yes and no, because I mean, you're working with a big, huge multi-corporation, so it's not sort of my decision that it needs to be less or more.
Sure.
It can be my desire, but it's not my decision. And I think DC was like, I don't know, should we kill this? Should we just throw these, print the pages in the back of something? Should we? Because, yeah, like you said, he did the first 10 or so, and I swear to God, I saw the breakdowns for the last 20, but I could never be able to find them. Mm-hmm. And the breakdowns for the first 20 pages. And then the editors, there was a lot of, they're like, well, let's just make it, we'll do it as a 20-page story instead of a 38-page story. I was like, well, it's about a whole life. It wouldn't, if you've read the issue, it'd be tough to compress.
Yeah.
It's already super compressed. And then, yeah, my editor, Jamie Rich, who we were talking about earlier, was like, well, let's turn the whole thing into a JPL tribute. And Brittany Holzer, who was working on it too, was also the editor, and she was like, yeah, let's do that. And so it was, at that point I was like, okay, this has to be sort of bigger than just about us. And then we had to make it great. But then we had the problem of who was going to draw it. And Bernard Chang is very close to JPL. They're friends. And and he was there in the final day. So we really put it in Bernard's sort of what he wanted to do, because we felt he kind of knew JPL a lot better than we did. Mm-hmm. So we sort of threw the ball to him and what he wanted to do. And he's like, I'll, because of my schedule, I want to draw some of the pages, but I can't draw all of them. And so he sort of says, so then we were left with these 18 pages. And I was just lucky enough that my best friends happened to be the best artists in comics, and so I asked one of them to step in. And Mitch was a big JPL fan. He's always said it's his favorite artist in the world, and Mitch killed it. He did it traditionally, and he did it in JPL style, which is crazy.
That is really crazy. I mean, it's funny because normally I wouldn't think of Mitch and JPL as being like that close stylistically, and the fact that like you can read that and it feels so congruous is really a hell of a feather in Mitch's cap.
Mitch has never not surprised me. That's the greatest thing about working with him for all these years. Is he when I first found him, he was the military artist. He did Punisher, he did Activity, and we did a military book together. But I mean, that Sheriff of Babylon had so many emotional moments that he was just nailing. And then, then we did Mr. Miracle, which was a cosmic book. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. And then, but he was doing the cosmic. He could do it all.
Yeah.
And then we did, Strange Adventure. We did Heroes in Crisis, which were these like little moments. And then we did Strange Adventures, which was totally, and he was, yeah. The great thing about Mitch is he's not just a good artist, he's a surprising artist. Mm-hmm. And you can, our next thing is also like totally another twist on to the different direction. So.
Well, I mean, I feel like a big part of the reason why you two work together so well is no matter how fantastical the idea is, like the roots of it are in like the relationships and the humanity of it. And like, that's the same thing with Batman Catwoman Special. Like, I have to say, I love the issue. The cat in the beginning, and I don't even know if this is like, I don't know, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the cat in the beginning and the cat in the end, like these white cats licking Selena were just like, I don't know. Those moments are, it's not like you like call those to attention or anything like that, but it's like this symmetry that's just so nice. And the fact that Mitch can finish that out in a way that works perfectly is just like really kind of astonishing. And also like it matches what you guys do, which is just like the humanity of it. And I don't know, I love it. I also love the fact that Selena becomes basically a cat propagandist because she, when they give a huge donation to what becomes the Selena Wayne Manor for orphan children, the proviso that all kids get a cat is something I very much support, despite the fact that both my cats are currently locked out of my office right now.
I'm a dog guy now because I'm allergic to cats, but I grew up a super cat guy. I had 2 cats and adored them. And I thought I had horrible hay fever. It turns out I was terribly allergic to them. they were slowly killing me throughout my childhood. Yeah, I mean the whole point of Batcat, the thing I really love about that series is the character of Selena being able to change. Like she's not the same person.
Yeah.
Day to day, but she has there's a consistency to her. But it's rare in comics. Comics are a lot about, and Alan Moore talks about this a lot, that like we have, the first dimension where just like, I want to fight bad guys. There's the second dimension. I want to fight bad guys because my parents were killed by a bad guy. And then there's like that third dimension of like, I want to fight bad guys, but it's Tuesday and I'm tired. It's like the actual dimension people live in. And we rarely get to that one where people are different from each day and they change and they evolve and they devolve and they go backwards and their motivations are not one simple thing that drives them always forward, because that's not the way I see myself, or I don't think anybody sees themselves that way. We're not all just sort of Freudian puzzles that you can solve. And so that was fun. That was fun to sort of write. That was the point of that, to write about Selena and how she's not this puzzle that can be solved. She's an actual complicated human being.
Yeah. I sort of feel like you live in that third dimension.
Don't we all?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously. But I mean,
Homer Simpson only visits and goes back.
I actually am only in the second dimension. I'm just mostly worried about like why I fight crime. But that's not always a thing, especially when it comes to superhero stories. I have to, this is a DC Black Label book. Does working within Black Label kind of change your approach for storytelling? Because it seems like, I don't know if you're able to have more freedom because of that, but it kind of seems like it. Is that something that's appealing to you, working within the Black Label world rather than like the sandbox of the continuity? Is there a preference there?
No, I mean the preference. My preference is always to get the freedom to do the best book possible and to get the support to have the best art possible, and Black Label tends to provide that more. There's less compromises. But I mean, like a Supergirl, a book I love that I'm doing now is in continuity. It just happens to be in space, so it doesn't touch on a lot of things, but it's not Black Label. I don't think of any of my books as being out of continuity. I think of them, like you said, like Born Again, you did not see Born Again immediately reflected in Avengers. You didn't see Captain America all sad about the flag in Avengers in Avengers 250 or whatever it was the next day. But that had happened, right? Like that changed in continuity. So that's how I see all of my books, as sort of existing next to continuities,
Yeah.
like the Killing Joke. So, a Black Label to me, it's a rating system. If I have a Black Label book, I can say the word fuck if I have to, but I don't often do.
Yeah. So it doesn't really change your approach mentally. It's just like you come from the same place no matter what. It's just sometimes you can curse.
Yeah. I can curse. I can have sex scenes, tasteful sex scenes.
You can have Booster Gold and Skeets destroy the timeline just because they want better ingredients for their bagels. I don't know if that's something that's Black Label allows, but I support it one way or another.
I was talking to a big Booster fan, and they're like, no, Booster's not casual with time. I was like, Booster's origin story is that he stole a bunch of stuff from a museum and then traveled back in time to be a superhero. Just by him existing in our time, he's breaking time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the entire plot of 52 is basically him being extremely casual with the timeline, too. I think he actually breaks time. But, what are you going to do? And now, a quick word from one of Off-Panel's sponsors. That sponsor's Bad Idea. Bad Idea paid for the sponsorship, but they won't give me anything to promote since they're over. So here I am, saying the name Bad Idea. Contractually. I have to. That's it. Bad Idea. They're a thing, I guess. And now, back to the show. Okay, so let's talk about something that is definitely on the complete freedom side of things. Love Everlasting, your new comic with through Substack with artist Elsa Chartier, colorist Matt Hollingsworth, and letterer Clayton Coles. It's a romance comic about Joan Peterson, a woman who's looking for love, and then through very specific and mysterious means gets enough of it that she's sick to death of it. I described it to Elsa, as, not in our podcast, as a Twilight Zone romance, and that's as far as I'm going to get into explaining it.
I like that.
I don't want to spoil it, but
I'll spoil it.
You're a spoiler? Okay, good. I just want to start with this because I think it's really funny. When I think of Elsa's art and I think about her approach, and maybe it's just because of the project she takes on, and also because I've talked to her a number of times about this stuff, I guess, but crime, that's where I think. What was it about
Elsa for crime? Oh, that's interesting.
Well, what was it about Elsa that made you think, let's do a romance comic?
Elsa and I had a meet because she approached me and said, do you want to create her own? I said, yes, I'd love your art. Let's do it. And we had a meeting of sort of where we wanted to, on the spectrum between superheroes punching each other and memoir about my sad childhood. Like, where did we want to put the book? And we sort of found our soft spot. And the reason I wanted to do Elsa is because this is about a woman. You see, it's not a romance comic. It's about romance comics.
Yeah.
It's like a horror comic that takes place in romance comics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about a woman trapped in an ideal world,
mm-hmm.
but it's not ideal for her. And to me, Elsa draws not what comics, not the ideal of comics, not the ideal of old comics. Like if you turn back, and she doesn't draw like Infantino or like Toth or Kirby or the Silver Age guys, but she kind of draws like our memory of those guys, the same way Darwin Cook did, the same way Doc Shaner does. My metaphor I like to use when I was in college, I was like, why does anyone like Impressionism? Why don't we just draw things like they look, right? And someone's like, no, Impressionism is not a drawing of what you're looking at. It's a drawing of your memory of that thing, of your thoughts about that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like when I read Darwin Cook, like Darwin Cook should not look retro because he doesn't look at all like what comics look like. That's not what comics used to look like in the 50s and 60s. That's not what Silver Age comics look like. But you read New Frontier and you're like, yep, that's exactly what I remember comics looking like.
Yeah.
It's somehow he's drawing your memory of the comics and not the comics themselves. And that's what Elsa does. She draws like this perfect sort of memory of what comics were. So I knew when I was going to build this sort of suburban 50s Donna Reed world that this woman was going to be trapped in at various points in time and space. She'd be good to that. She can do that. She could draw it perfectly, but in a way that kind of just deconstructs it at the same time, which is exactly what she did because she's that good.
Did that idea exist before Elsa?
No, it came from
Your discussions?
no, it came after. I mean, yeah, no, it didn't. I mean, it came from. It wasn't like she was like, "Let's do romance. I'm into this." That
Right.
stuff came from me. But no, it did not come. We developed it together. I mean, I pitched it to her, sort of the whole first issue, the pitch you read, as what it was. But it came after. Like I said, she's like, I was like, well, do you want to do? There's only so many. When you're looking to do an indie image book, there's only so many lanes you can do it in. Do you want to be in the D&D lane, or do you want to be in the saga lane, or do you want to be in the zombie lane? Like what freaking lane do you want to be in? And she's like, I want to do something that's not just a story, like not something that takes place in the real world. I want there to be a fantastical element to it, but we didn't want to do something everyone else has done. So then you have to be in a genre. So those were kind of my marching orders that we came up with, and so that's what I came with based on the marching orders. Something that was genre in the real world. Yeah,
I do think it's fitting that you're working with this artist who is kind of like what our memories are of past art, past comic art. And then in a lot of ways, it's like the story of Love Everlasting is kind of like what our memories are of what romance looks like. And there's a nice symmetry there, and it works really well. I do have to ask you a question. I know this one person was absolutely incredulous about my thought, or not absolutely incredulous. I'm not trying to slander this person, but
how dare you, person? I don't know.
Some people were surprised that I thought that the final panel was funny. Is the final panel funny in your opinion? I think yes.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Justified. There we go. Vindicated.
You'll never laugh harder than you'll laugh at a horror. When you're deathly in the middle of something, that when that joke lands, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
I just love the way that Elsa draws those 3 panels and the build up to Joan being like, oh shit, I'm in this again. Not again.
And it was big. That was a big Clayton thing because we had a big decision to make over whether to put growlixes there. They're like percentage signs for the word fuck, or whether to actually use the word fuck. And so we had to sort of back and forth. Clayton and I talking about it. We came up with, okay, she can swear, and once she sort of wakes up to her own reality, she can use actual swear words, but people still in that reality have to use the growlixes, so we can tell a story in the letters that way.
Well, and she's also, I imagine, because like they're still the idealized version of this world, as opposed to her, who's like this variable to their constants.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
I love it. That's amazing. Okay, so Love Everlasting, I might be wrong about this, or at least it's the first time in a while you've written something in comics that's totally your thing. Not that you don't make everything your thing, but it has no past, besides the fact that our memory of romance stories, there's no intellectual property, no parameters. It's just you, Elsa, Clayton, and Matt doing your thing. It sounds like you kind of have this already with your work, or at least mentally you do. But does that feel different after your stretch of lots and lots of for hire work, especially DC?
Yeah, it does. It feels very. I mean, I did Sheriff of Babylon in the beginning of my career, but that's a different experience because that's Vertigo. So I mean, it's with an editor, and there's still $1 trillion company behind you and all that stuff. But yeah, it does. It feels a lot different. You're working without a net. There's nobody who's going to judge you but yourself. But yeah, I have a lot of freedom. I don't know if it feels so different. I don't know. The thing that feels most different is you kind of don't have to. I write superhero comics. I might be off in genre, but I do write superhero comics, and there has to be punching at some point in every superhero comic. Like, I think I'm probably one of the writers who tries to veer off that the most. But at some point, there's a need for violence. It's part of kind of the contract you sign with the audience. Mm-hmm. And so it was weird writing something where that wasn't part of the contract, even though if you read Lover House, there is violence in there. But like the utter needs for someone, you get 7 pages into any script and you're like, oh, I haven't had anybody punch anybody. It's like, even though in real world, how many times I've ever punched anybody? It's very low. But in comics, you constantly need your characters to come to physical confrontations with other characters.
I got into a fight once in my life, and I literally do not remember a single thing that happened during it. It was in high school. I threw a basketball at somebody's head because he kept fouling me over and over, and apparently he did not like that. It turned into like a 20-second skirmish, and basically I blacked out the entire thing. And next thing you know, we were playing basketball again the next day, so clearly it didn't faze us too much. Fights are weird. Yeah.
Fights are weird, yeah.
Well, did you feel... Obviously, you've learned a lot over your time doing, not to indicate that your for hire work is done or something like that, but you learned a lot about how you want to make comics and, you know, how you approach comics and how you work with artists and do all these things because you've been like living in it, immersed in it for, you know, last however long your run with DC has been. But do you feel like there was anything you learned about things that you don't want to do or how you don't want to do it? Like any things that you carried with you, like, this is something I couldn't do before, so now I want to do it like this. Is there anything that the freedom gives you that you didn't have before, I guess?
I mean, I'll talk about something that was coming up today, and that's just to bank a lot of issues.
Oh, yeah.
When you're working at DC Comics, there's a budget, there's a schedule. If your artist gets behind, you know, they're like, okay, well, we only have one issue in the can, so what? We're launching now. And then you're like, no. If you do that, the artist is 3 issues in. We're gonna hit a wall. And I was like, oh, now that I own this product and I own the deadline that we're launching, I was like, we're gonna get as many issues in the can. So we did, you know, the first 5 issues basically before we launched the first one, just so like Elsa wasn't dying at the end of it.
Yeah.
So I mean that's just a very practical thing that was nice to be able to control. I mean, and that's all about, I just happen to have, you know, we were at Substack and we had, it's also a money thing. We didn't need the money right away, so we could support it.
Well, I mean, that's a huge thing given like your goals and everything. It's like, if you want to have an uninterrupted run, you got to give the artist lead time as much as possible. Otherwise, A, you're going to have a fill-in artist, or B, your artist is going to like just crumble under the pressure, understandably, because there's just too much. And I guess that is one of the really nice things about the Substack Pro deal is it kind of underwrites the writing or the creating. So when you actually get to the point where you're ready to launch, you're going to be in a position where you know your best position to succeed. And that seems like immensely valuable for the creative process.
Oh, it takes the risk out of it on some level, because, you know, putting together 5 issues of a comic book that costs you got to pay letters, you got to pay colors and stuff. And you never know if it comes out and everybody hates it. You're like, but we had the funding up front, so we were okay. So we didn't have that sort of scared. We didn't have that scared moment. We could be like, okay, let's get the best colorist we can with Matt Hollingsworth. Let's get the best letter we can with Clayton. Let's get a proofreader so we don't fuck ourselves up. Let's get an actual designer instead of us just kind of, you know, squirming around. You know, we could actually spend money to make this comic as good as possible without sort of worrying about at the end, like, are we just digging a hole for ourselves? You know, we started off on the mountain. We knew we could only go down so far. So that makes it so much nicer.
Tom Muller did the logo, right?
Yeah, he did the logo and the sort of interior design of the Substack page.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. Well, okay, so from what I understand, you and Elsa were already working on this before Substack.
Yeah.
What made Substack appealing when they came knocking, besides obviously like the financial support that allows you to do this in a very specific way? Was there anything else that just stood out as being particularly interesting to you as a creator?
I feel like this is the point where I'm supposed to say, like, this is going to start. I listened to your podcast you did on Substack and how it was like going to revolutionize comics. And I was like, yeah, maybe it'll revolutionize comics. But I never got that sort of feeling. No. To me, it was mostly a chance to make the best version of this comic I possibly could.
Yeah.
And that's all. That's the most I cared about. I mean, I like the other aspects of it. I mean, I like that I get to put out my scripts. I get to do the newsletter. I think those are all great. But to me, at the end of the day, it's about making the best comic book. Like, I'm a comic book writer, and my job is to make the best comic books. So some people are more than that. They're like, I'm not a comic book writer. I'm a product. I'm here because you read my comics because you get closer to me and you're going to look into my soul. But and that's what I want. But that's kind of not how I feel about myself. I feel like my product is the point, not myself is the point.
Mm-hmm.
which is to my detriment. I think Elsa, I think this frustrates Elsa.
Elsa's very good at that. I mean, you have a very good partner when it comes to it. I mean, she already had a YouTube show, and she is very good at Patreon. She's good at everything. So you have a very good partner to lean into on this stuff. But
thank the Lord, because she's so good at this stuff. Yeah. When they first came to me, it didn't immediately appeal to me because they offer it to writers, right? And they're like, you can use the money to hire artists. I was like, I don't. And I talked to Clay about it, and Clay was like, why would they give you the money? You do nothing. You write a script. Like, it's all our product. You're living on our. Why would I don't? Like, Clay did not understand why they gave me the money, and he was right. And I was like, oh, he's totally right. And then I was like, oh, what if I did this as a partnership with Elsa, because she understands this world and I do not? And that was the best decision I made the whole time. Was making it a partnership instead of just like Tom King Productions. It's Everlasting Productions.
I do think it's kind of interesting, though. It's like, when I talk about the impact Substack has, it's not so much that Substack itself is like necessarily, sorry, all the team at Substack. It's not that Substack itself is like such a revolutionary idea. It's just, there's not a lot of times in the history of comics where somebody came in and was like, we're going to give you money to do whatever you want, and you're going to own the rights to this and just do your thing.
Yeah. That's a unique thing. And that's why you're seeing Grant Morrison and you're seeing Brian K. Vaughan. It's something that's never been done, and it's quite wonderful. And you're going to see great comics because of it.
Well, and like the rest of the stuff, it's just it's really interesting looking at how you all have it set up, because your comic is free, but all the stuff that's kind of you have to pay for is like behind the scenes content and AMAs and podcasts and original art and limited issues and posts about writing, drawing, and storytelling. And you have indicated that you're going to talk about your original art collection, because you're, I quote, a hopelessly addicted collector of art and comics. I mean, all those things are interesting because I don't want to get too far in. I mean, I don't even know how much you can talk about this, but it's interesting because it reorients in a very weird way you and Elsa as like the paid product and the comic as like the draw, if that makes sense, which is fascinating.
It is very bizarre. Like, this was not the original plan. The original plan was always like put the comic behind the paywall and put the other stuff the other way. And we reversed it halfway through because I was just like, I want the most people to see the comic. Like, I want that to always be the focus, because that's what to me is so special, is that we're making a product that I love. So I was very an advocate of putting the comic in front of the paywall. And also, this has never been done before. Like in comics, you're always doing something someone's done before.
Right.
Like I said, 100. So to be like, okay, we're going to do a monthly comic that's free online. I mean, I'm sure that I just have never heard of it, but I've never heard of like a.
There's web comics, but those normally have a specific cadence that isn't just like a monthly issue dropping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the most, but yeah, but for like a month. Yeah. So. Like you give us an email address once a month for 5 months, you get a comic in your mailbox for free, and you can just read it, and it's totally professionally done. It's not like like I've written free comic book day comics, and that's like, okay, just do 8 pages and we'll get it out. We'll put a bunch of ads in it. That's not what this is. This is the exact product we would give to Image Comics. This is a full comic book that you get to read with the full story, and to have that to come out for free. I liked it. I like doing something new and cool and stupid and crazy. That's fun.
The comic being free thing, my site is behind a paywall. For a lot of the content is, and then I have a Patreon for the podcast. One of the things that kind of bugs me about crowdfunding is like you have this product that product. I hate saying product. It seems really gross. It's like you're writing something or you're drawing something or doing whatever, and you want people to see it, but to like establish the value, you normally have to put that behind the paywall because that's what people are really there for. And I do like the idea that you all are using the comic as the hook. And then it's like, if you want more, and especially in 2022 where people love like getting merch or like getting behind the scenes stuff. I mean, like, I think that part of the reason why James Tynion is so successful on there is like that dude can like write so many behind the scenes things on his work and people just love it. Like they eat that stuff up. That's like the type of stuff people really want. And it's fascinating to see how it inverts, like the free thing inverts the whole process. And I could see why it would work. I just wouldn't have expected. I remember when Elsa said it, I didn't really comprehend what she was saying. And then about halfway through the podcast, I'm like, all of it is free? What?
No, Yeah, I don't have that. James and I are such different people. I don't have that instinct to sort of share everything about what I do every day. I have to fight myself and make myself do it. It's not that I'm a private person. I think maybe just a lazy person. I don't know. I don't know to sort of type up. I was like, why would anybody care about this? You care about Superman. You care about Joan Peterson. Who cares about Tom King? That's my.
People really they love that stuff.
I'm too Midwestern for it, man. I got to. I was raised by my grandmother too much. My Nebraska grandmother.
So do you feel like you're having to kind of push yourself in directions that you're not totally comfortable in, but you're kind of figuring out how to negotiate?
For sure. Yeah. Writing the newsletter is the hardest part. Writing the comic book's a lot easier.
I believe it.
I had to write an introduction to Batman #1 because we posted the first script for my first Batman issue behind the paywall, which is awesome. Like it was, I really like that script, and I like people. It's never been out there before, so it's a cool thing for people to see. And I had to write the introduction to it, and that was I was like, should I share this with people? I feel like if I'm sharing behind the scenes, I'm somehow ruining the magic. I feel like I'm, like you're watching Star Wars and you're watching the models, and someone walks behind it and takes one over here and puts it over there and walks off screen. I was like, I feel like I'm ruining it. Like fight this sort of instinct to not be that.
I have the same feeling when it comes to promoting basically anything I do. Something will come up where somebody, like my wife and I are out, and somebody mentions that they like comics, and my wife will immediately be like, "Oh, my husband has a podcast about comics," and then she's like, "David, tell them," and I'm like, immediately shut down and have like literally no idea what to say. I'm just like, you wouldn't want to listen to it. It's not very good. You wouldn't like it at all. And yeah, I just.
Alaska is Midwest, but way over in the West.
Exactly. We're like half Canadian, half Midwest.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see all that stuff because it feels like so much of what you all are doing, all the Substack creators, is you guys are just kind of like mad scientists right now and just kind of figuring out what the hell works and what doesn't. And I don't know, is there a part of that's exciting to you, or is it a little weird going from a writer to almost a business unto yourself?
It should be exciting. I mean, sometimes it's fun. It's like I write so many scripts and so much it's nice to flex different kinds of muscles and to do something a little weirder. But I love writing comics so much. I hate to say it, but that's just the joy of my life is writing comics, and I like writing comics more than I like writing about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And running the business is interesting. But anything that's I basically, the reason I'm so productive and makes people, it's not like a secret. I put other things to the side. Like I have my family and I have my scripts, and those are the two things that are always my focus on everything. So it's tough to put another thing on that pedestal because I feel like one of the other two things might get broken off, but those are always my focus.
Yeah.
Be a great writer, be a great father. That's just like, those are my two like sort of North Stars. Two North Stars. That'll tear you apart. But you gotta be focused on something. It's like it's almost existential. Like existentialism is about like caring about something above other things, sort of like concentrating on one thing. And so that puts me there. And so it's hard to focus on something else.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, it totally makes sense, especially with those like Midwestern sentiments in there. I do think that you have some good ideas behind it, though, because like I mentioned, the hopelessly addicted.
I should be selling it. You shouldn't be selling it to me. I should be selling it to you.
Well, like sometimes that's my job too. I just want to say that I'm very excited to like see some of your collection, just because like I always think it's really fascinating what people, we're all kind of fans of comics, like you said earlier, the 10,000 hours and everything like that. But everyone kind of has the things that they value. And it's funny because like for some people, like I'm a big Stiltman fan and people always give me Stiltman drawings and I treasure those and everything like that. But it's funny to see the things that kind of stand out for people. And like, I think like sharing some of your own original art collection, like that's the type of thing that people are going to love because people just love seeing the things that you value. I am interested though. Like, do you have a favorite piece of original art you own? Can you pick a single favorite? Is that impossible? I like how you're looking around now. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, I'm looking at all my stuff I have on the wall, stuff I love.
See, there's a story behind each piece too, and I think maybe that'll help you unlock it. It's like telling the story behind the story.
I mean, like I have 4 pages from the first comic I ever read, Avengers 300. I'm really proud. I have those up, and so every time I look at them, I get happy that I have them. So those are some of my favorites. I have an Alex Toth romance piece. I mean, that's how this whole thing started, which I just adore. I think I think Alex Toth is my favorite artist of all time, and I think this is him at his height in just doing a romance page. What else do I have? I have a David Wright strip. David Wright was one of the best artists of all time. He's a British artist.
I'm looking at this Avengers 300. This looks like a very, very wild comic.
Written by Walt Simonson with John Buscema Martin. Walt and I've talked about it. He has his regrets. It's not like the best comic in the world, but it was my first, and therefore I adore it for all time.
I love it's a 64-page spectacular presenting the new team, which is Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, the Mighty Thor, Steve Rogers as the captain with God, that outfit was terrible. And then, sorry, whoever, John Buscema.
You don't like the captain outfit?
I don't know. It's just reminds me of U.S. Agent.
It was before U.S. Agent.
I know, but now it reminds me of U.S. Agent. And then Gilgamesh, the forgotten one.
Gilgamesh.
All time, definitely perfect name for him because most people forget that Gilgamesh exists. Sorry, Gilgamesh. Sorry, Kieran Gillen.
Why would you put Gilgamesh on a team that already had Thor? We need another mythical character who has the exact same superpower.
My favorite piece that I own is back when I was at Multiversity Comics, we did an original art auction to all the money went to Bill Mantlow's family to support him and when Guardians of the Galaxy came out.
Sure.
And Christian Ward did a piece of Rocket Raccoon and it went up for auction and I tried bidding on it and it quickly went out of my price range. And then what happened was this one original art collector / big fan of comics, Michael Perlman, was going up against a mystery bidder.
I know Michael.
Going back and forth and it went really high. And then Michael ended up losing, and I remember he emailed me later and it's like, if somebody doesn't pay for that, let me know. And I'm like, I'll let you know. Somebody paid, went straight through to the Mantlo family. 6 months later, Christmas Day, I opened up a present for my parents and it was that piece of art. And so, yeah. And so that, the story behind that, and then also the fact that it was like a cool thing that I got to do as part of Multiversity Comics to support Bill Mantlo was really cool. Also, it ended up becoming a cover to, I think, Guardians of the Galaxy number 27 because somebody saw it online at Marvel and was like, we should make this a cover. So it's like, there's layers there. I love it. That's the cool thing about the Avengers 300. It's not necessarily, the art is cool, obviously, but at the same time, it's like, it's your first comic. That's amazing.
Yeah, you look for things that attach you to memories, or you look at things that just hit you as beautiful. Or comic art collecting is that's where my brain goes when it needs to sort of relax a little bit. When I need to sort of leave the world a little bit, I'll just get lost in old comic art.
I want to buy so much more, but it is an expensive habit,
and it's doubled in the last year.
It's insane.
It's since I started serious. I had a bunch of pieces that I just got into conventions, pieces of my own. I have Walter's Splash from the Vision up on my wall, which is just gorgeous. I have some stuff from my own things that I've done. I bought that page, and you were talking about the Batman Catwoman special. I bought the page where the splash where they're kissing in front of a Christmas tree. I bought that from Mitch.
Oh, because he did it traditionally. He doesn't have pages to sell very often.
Yeah, I have some very rare Mitch art because he's all digital. So, and I have some nice big clay pages that I love. So getting pages from your friends is also a fun thing. Clay's still mad at me because I got a page from him once and I had him draw on it because I felt he drew the nose wrong. He was so pissed. He's still pissed.
I'm not gonna lie. I understand his beef with you.
It was one of those things where it was a character who was in the background, so he didn't draw her face because she was way back. But that makes, because the art is shrunk, but he's drawing 11 by 17, and when you're reading it in a comic book at whatever that is, less than 8 by 10,
you don't notice it.
You don't notice it, but when it's on the big thing, you're like, why does this random person not have a nose? So I was like, you're a buddy of mine. Can you just draw a little nose in there? He got so mad. But he did it. He drew the nose, and it looks gorgeous.
This is like a weird thing to like, but I actually have a weird affinity for like the background details that are crazy, just like super weird. Like, this is not me slandering Brian Hitch, so I'm sorry, Brian, but I was reading an issue of Venom, and there's a cat in the Venom run that they're doing right now, and that's called Sleeper. That's actually a symbiote, and It is like the single funniest looking cat that has ever existed. It's just like this tiny cat in the background, and I just treasure it. And like, I think people think when I talk about it that I'm like making fun of it. I am not. I love it. It is the most hilariously whack and lovable cat I've ever seen in my entire life. So bravo, Brian Hitch. The Ultimates? No. For me, it's that cat. That's the apex. But okay, last question about Love Everlasting. I did want to ask, this is not specifically about Love Everlasting, but I think it's just an interesting thing that you do. You often seem to tackle like lighter characters, like characters who are maybe a little bit more fun and casual and just like, you know, they have like fairly normal lives, like Wally West. Like I love Wally West. And then like Adam Strange, even the idea of Joan, like a love story character. You take those lighter characters and then kind of take them down dark paths. What's okay? I'm just interested in like, do you feel like there's an interest to you as a writer about working within contrast like that, like taking something that's normally light and presenting it in a dark situation?
I don't know, too much Frank Miller and Alan Moore when I was a kid, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think I used to say the comics I enjoyed the most were comics which took the absurd seriously.
Yes.
And because it was absurd, it became scary and interesting.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like Dark Knight Returns Part 2, whatever it's called, it gets
Dark Knight Strikes Back.
Dark Knight Strikes Back. It gets a lot of flack, but there's one scene in it where a Plastic Man is just like in a ball, and they go up to him, and you know there's like 2 lines of dialogue where it's like, this is the most powerful man on earth, and he just doesn't know it. And I remember like, what? Plastic Man is the most powerful man on earth, and he doesn't know it? I
remember that. I remember my mind was blown too.
Yeah, you're just like, it's those moments where it's like something ridiculous becomes utterly compelling just because of that stuff. I enjoy that. I remember, I mean, it's a stupid, silly example, but like in my Batman run, I did this thing where Psycho Pirate was infinitely powerful because he can basically go up to anyone and change anyone's emotions.
Yeah.
But so I had this whole run where I had a ventriloquist on a team without his dummy, and it was like, why is he on a team fighting Psycho Pirate without a dummy? At the very end, they realized ventriloquist is on the team because he's the only one Psycho Pirate can't tell what to do, because ventriloquist only listens to the dummy. Like nobody controls him but his dummy.
Yeah.
And that made me, I like those kind of little twists.
You know, I have a themed sketchbook going back to original art that is superheroes doing ordinary things, because I love but I love that type of stuff. But also it's like, it's not just ordinary things, it's just like things that could happen to you. Like one of the first DC stories that really hit me was I don't even remember how old I was. I think maybe it was like 10. And Emerald Twilight came out. The Hal Jordan going.
Love Emerald Twilight. Yeah.
Yeah, Hal Jordan going bad, and like
with drunk driving and everything.
Well, I mean that storyline.
Oh no, that's before that.
Yeah. This is after, was it Coast City got completely destroyed by Mongol?
Yeah,
and
after Coast City, with the on Mars.
And it's a really, like, when I read that, I remember just being like, I had no idea comics could do this, because it was. I'm not saying that like killing all of like the lanterns and like basically becoming Parallax and everything is like an ordinary thing, but it's a very ordinary thing to respond to trauma like he went through in a very unusual for the character sort of way, because it's like that's the type of thing that breaks a person. And I remember reading that and I was just like, I didn't know that type of thing was possible. But that story like changed things for me, and I think that that's kind of what you're talking about, where those ordinary moments can lead into interesting storytelling directions.
I just think if you're going to pull, I think every single person can be the subject of a great novel. Something in your life that happened to you was absolutely stunning and amazing, and it was you overcoming something or succumbing to something. And if you ask them, and then that's what you're trying to get at. Like, what's that one story you have to tell? Like, if you thought about your whole life, what's the one story you would want to tell about it? It wouldn't be like, oh, that there was this day I went to Starbucks and I had a drink and it was great and I went home. No, it would be the day, it was the day my mother died and I had to tell it to my kids in a way, and they hugged me. You would go to the pain and the revelation behind the pain if you had to tell like one story about your whole life. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I think about it.
No, it makes total sense. Well, to work off of kind of like the Substack of it all and all these different things, I wanted to talk about where comics are because, by all accounts, I mean, like
Sure.
everything was looking amazing. I mean, like despite the pandemic, maybe even because of the pandemic to a certain degree in a weird way, and
Yeah,
like
comic sales are up.
yeah, and supply chain issues and all that stuff. The book market is up, direct market is up, new opportunities are rising via Substack, Comixology Originals, Webtoon. I mean, Jamie S. Rich, he's over at Tapas. They have like what Michelle Wells is there too. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things happening. It feels like a time of change, but positive change in a lot of ways.
Very much.
What does that feel like from the inside? Like, obviously, you're working on Substack now, but does this environment have you wanting to explore other opportunities and see where you fit in what's next?
Yeah, I mean, I just did my second creator owned. Like I said, I write things all at once, so I just wrote my second creator owned, the first 6 issues of it. So I'm kind of venturing outside of my comfort zone, but it does feel. I mean, there's two sort of separate driving forces. There's this driving forces that comics are selling more, which sort of is a wonderful force, which will keep me employed. But there's this like separate. There's a gold rush going on, which is IP. There's an IP gold rush in Hollywood right now, which is driving everything in sort of our industry, from comics that. Like Hollywood is desperate for content because they just started all these new streaming services and they need all these shows to put on them. And to me, that's the thing that's changing the industry the most, in terms of the people sort of I interact with. You know, like that explains sort of why this person's going this way and that person's going that way. If you sort of dig deep, you'll find that sort of looking.
That's the commonality.
That's the commonality. It's that weird Hollywood gold mine that we're all kind of sort of crossing our fingers about, that we're going to hit that. I mean, it's hard because comics for a long time, I mean, like most of its life, comics killed you. Like it washed you out. It destroyed you by the end of it. Most creators who did comics in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, by the time they were in their 50s and 60s, couldn't pay their bills. They couldn't pay for their health care. This thing that's sort of the generation that I'm at the very end of, which is sort of the Bendis, Brubaker, Miller generation, Gail Simone, where comic creators can age and still make money. That's brand new. So we're trying to sort of figure out what a comic book career is now. It's not just used to be you made comics between the ages of 20 and 30, and then you just drank for the rest of your life. We're trying to make this into an entire career, and I think that's the big change I'm seeing right now is people understanding where they sort of fit in on that ladder. That makes sense?
No, it totally does. I mean, I wrote a piece about that recently where it's just like there used to be kind of that one accepted path of how things worked in comics, and then I feel like around there was the whole Kirkman manifesto that Robert Kirkman did that kind of presented another path where it's like,
I remember exactly where I was when I heard that. I was taking my daughter to school and it's like, this will never happen, and it all came true.
Yeah, but I mean, for listeners that don't know, the general premise was instead of like Marvel and DC being the end game, it was going to Marvel and DC, building up your name and taking it to creator owned, where you would like basically use the fan base you built up to kind of build up your own ideas and control your own fate. And I feel like that idea is still the same, except for it's expanded into things like what you're talking about with like the IP stuff. I bring him up a lot on this. Like Scotty Young is like so amazing at like merchandising, and like somebody like Jen Bartel is so good at that too. It's like really astonishing because possibly much to your chagrin, it's like the industry went from seemingly, it's like there's like a path that's now open where instead of the comics being in product, it's almost like the creators and everything they do is their end product. And I think that's fascinating and possibly more sustainable, but also possibly way more tiring. And that's problematic in its own right.
But I still don't think this is probably controversial for me to say, but I don't think any of that works without X-Men, Superman, Batman still being the backbone. Like we couldn't have indie comics. We couldn't have, we could have, no, that's it. I should say that. We'd have those indie comics. We'd have those memoirs that exist that get reviewed by the New Yorker and exist in that space. That'll always keep going. They have their own sort of product. But like Image and Boom and Dark Horse, the comics, those kind of indie comics, and that IP form, they still rely on superheroes and the energy that comic book fans get from superheroes,
Yeah.
and the love. So like they can't, they're not ready. We're not ready to detach from that. We're still tied to it.
I think it's like there's always like a middle step, and for some people it's not going to be the middle step. Some people that's going to be the final step, and like that's totally reasonable. And I think it's interesting though, because I think it's healthy for people to have options. I mean, I think that's a big difference, is now people have opportunities that they didn't have in the past. Like you were saying, it's like the generation you're part of has completely different opportunities than people did in the past. Look at Bendis. I mean, Bendis took all of his stuff over to Dark Horse and is now doing, was it Joy Operations with Stephen Byrne? And
Joy Operations, really good. Pick it up.
Yeah, and it's just like he's able to still do his thing, and he just keeps going with the flow and making it work for himself. And I think that is, I don't know, that's wonderful.
It is. It's very wonderful, and there's an open. I mean, it's very tough because our industry basically used to have two employers. We had Marvel or DC, and if you, and it's like, okay, well, at least you have two people, so you know they fight. But if you alienated one, you were suddenly under the dominion of the other. So it's like you can't sort of it's very tough to navigate when there's only two employers that can possibly employ you.
Yeah, it's like the Pepsi challenge, but for comics.
I mean, I always think of Len Wein, like, you know, like he was the master of that, of being like, oh, he'd always be like, fuck, you know, he was the guy who threw Marvel under the bus and ran to DC, and then he's like, crap, now I'm trapped at DC, you know. So it's very much helps. It helps you make better comics, because the comic book companies know that you have other outlets, that you, there's only so many stories in your head, and they want those stories. They're like, that's IP. We're going to turn that into a movie. We're going to make WandaVision out of that. So when they come to you and you can say, well, I don't actually have to give you this, I could go to these other places, then they become more generous and they give you more freedom. So it's a plus on a lot of levels.
I do think it's funny. You didn't spend a lot of time at Marvel, but boy, did you have an impact. Like the WandaVision kind of played a part, and then the whole Loki thing too, which is extraordinarily wild. I mean,
I was talking to a comic book creator yesterday, and I was like, we were talking about toys. I was like, I mean, I did, again, 100 issues of Batman. I don't think they made one toy out of anything I did in my Batman run. But they did make a toy out of my Loki pitch that I did. I was like, one Loki pitch overruled 100 issues of Batman.
Oh my God, that's incredible. All right. Well, Tom, that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about everything you've been up to in the, last 6 years that you have been on the podcast. It's been a busy time, but I really appreciate you coming on to chat with me.
Gonna have me on in 6 years from now, and we'll talk about whatever the next COVID variant. It's been COVID quadrupon or whatever it is.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with writer Tom King. You can find him on Twitter at TomKingTK and on Substack at everlastingproductions.substack.com. Love Off Panel and want to support it? Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts today and give the show a rating or review while you're at it, but 5 stars only. You can also support the show by backing on Patreon. Find the show at patreon.com/offpanel, and when you back it on there, you get early access to each week's podcast as well as weekly content and more. Want even more? Subscribe to my subscription comic site, Sketched, at sketch.com for long-form articles, interviews, and the rest of the site's content and its members-only forum. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by liking it on Facebook at /Sketched. That's SKTCHD. Follow on Twitter and Instagram at @SketchComic or following me at @SliceFriedGold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Cameron Brown, Rom V, Devin Fitzsimons, Nick Walker, Patrick Coyle, Isaac Oren, Scott Carpenter, Rent Narb Studios Comics, Nicholas Palmieri, Capes and Tights Podcast, Klaus Van de Ven, Brian, Submit Industries, Raj Patel, Jack Mulqueen, Kyle, Carl Kerschel, Robert Masella, Elza Chartier, Luke Nakashoji, Elliot Metz, Dr. Luke, Scott Hazelwood, Scott Buwan, Michael Tunk, Canadian by Proxy, Johnny Cannon, Bradley Rader, Carl Troy, Brandon DePillis, Patrick Brower, Declan Shalvey, Dan Guarino, Josh Williamson, Adam Freeman, Ben Wild, Brian Klein Q, SB, Nick Bennett, Daniel Whitfield, Susanna Polo, Reed Hinkley Barnes, Mario Tiambang, AbductedTheComic.com, Andrew Carita, Matt Mahoney, Charlie Chu, Stephen Hall, Pensacola Pop Comics, Kim Eslin, Philip Myra, Christian Shelton, Kenny Porter, Chris Pacello, Torrin Grunbeck, Fuzz Bubbles, Christopher Todd, Transmitter Down, Waltz Comics and Books, Carl Mizell, Paul Slates, Akil Wilson, Alex Dimitriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Wesley Gift, Sean Kirkham, Alistair Ross, Julio Anta, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwan, Vita Ayala, Tara Ferguson, Dave Slusher, WMQ Comics, Akil, Kokachi, Sean Pinello, Ken Heidelman, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, David Kelly, Robert Wilson IV, Nick Polito, Brendan Fletcher, Jonathan Nilsson, Matthew Groom, Jason Assey, Adam Bogert, Matthew Taylor, Taylor, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Nick Hall, Bjorn Basin, John Hendricks, Steve Anderson, Ian Maxwell, Cliff Chang, Colin McMahon, Chris Palmer, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Kat McKenzie, Adam Heifeld, Fiona Staples, Mark Abbott, Mike Murphy, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonakos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission Comic Star in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Off Panel's theme song just for the show. Check out their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.